So we're going to go ahead and we are going to move on to Joanne at Covenant and her cohort that I should remember the name of. Eric. Sorry about that. So I have known Joanne for many, many years and loved being, thank you. Loved it when I got to visit her at Covenant Village. Same thing, that was really when I was fairly new to working with seniors, and I had no idea that communities like these existed. And when Joe took me through and just how beautiful they were, and she's like, oh, well, we're renovating this one, here's the new granite that we're putting in, and new cabinetry, and the new flooring, and kind of described how when a new person moves in, they get to choose all those things, and
crown molding.
Exactly. I was just amazed. So it was really, really cool. So Joanne, it's certainly great to have you back on the stage with us. So let's talk about the basic premise of a continuing care retirement community, and how does that set you apart from other communities that advertise offering what they call a continuum of care?
Sure, so that's a question everyone gets. The great news in West Michigan, like everything from arts, entertainment, is there are so many choices for everyone, and there's not a bad choice. It's going to be the choice of what works well for you. It could be staying in your home to the end of your life. That could be a good choice. Going to a condo, going to a rental property, going from your home to a condo. What a continuum of care is, and there's thousands of them around the country, is a community you want to move in independent like each of you are today. And all of our goals are to stay independent and active to the end of our life. We're in charge of a lot of that, not all of it. He's in charge of, ultimately some of those changes. But within a community, you have the ability, if you have higher levels of care, you're going to transition within the community, whether it's assisted living, whether it's any requirements for specialized memory care. Those are high acuity. I'll tell you, we have lots of people in our independent living community that have cognitive deficits, but because they make those choices early, they can stay independent longer by making the transition. We have rehabilitation, we have skilled. A real distinctive in most of the folks that represent themselves as a continuum care is our promises, Covenant's promises, is we're going to provide care to end of life even if you spend down your private funds. So there is a financial review. It's always very scary. It shouldn't be. It's not that hard. Most of us fly through colors with no problem. But that financial evaluation is just a moment in time. We don't know what's going to happen for us the next day. So that promise of knowing that you have all levels of care on the community is a good option for some people. Some people, I don't need it. My mother lived to be 101, years old. She was healthy. So that's kind of the overview, and you're familiar. We've got Holland Home. We're robust here. Holland Home, Clark Retirement, Porter Hills. I think we have 6 or 7 of them, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's that difference of, instead of just offering all the levels of care, it's the guarantee of still continuing to provide it even if you run out of money, which is it's really tough. A lot of these people move in, they might move in their 80s, and as we, talked about last month, living to 100, they might be living to 100. Joanne, I know this is off the cuff too, but what's the oldest person that you have in your community?
She just turned, in independent living, she just turned 99 on Friday. Our youngest resident just moved from Alaska, and she's 61. So we have 4 decades of generations in the community. And I think that's, when I talk about the lifestyle, I always like to define that. We all have our own lifestyle, whether you wear khakis or jeans, or you want to live on a lake, or, in the suburb. It's all a lifestyle that we choose. So it's at our campus, and we've got 19 campuses across the country. At our campus, I see that younger age coming down. Or as people call them, the hip and cool people are now moving in, so don't wait.
Yeah, I could move in a few years. Okay, thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. So, how long has Covenant Living been around, and how has it evolved over time to meet the changing needs of your residents?
Okay, so Covenant Living has been around for 125 years. We began in the suburbs of Chicago, providing homes to widow and widowers. So it has transitioned now. We actually acquired 2 communities during the pandemic to continue to build our footprint to meet individual needs. One of the distinctives with Covenant Living and the other communities, again, there are no better, it's what's best for you, is our financial strength and that ability to be able to provide those care for individuals. I don't get into financials. I don't know a lot about financials. I have someone that does my financials. But for me, it was really impressive, or I was proud to learn that, when we went into the pandemic, we were financially strong. And if anyone knows what the Fitch Corporation is, I can't tell you a lot about it, but it evaluates nonprofit organizations. When we went into the pandemic, we had a B++ grade, which I just thought was cool because I would have loved an extra plus when I was in school on my B+. And it spoke to a number of things. It speaks to your liabilities. It speaks to how you're using that money, because we're nonprofit. Every dime we spend goes back into the community, back into the care, back into the staffing, which is so important. And then as we came out of the pandemic, we got a new grade and we got an A-. So I felt, knowing how much all of us struggled through the pandemic, to come up with a better financial outlook going into that was pretty powerful and something that I love to share with individuals.
Yeah, that's huge because, like so many things in life, there is a huge difference between communities, not only in the style and the price, but the quality and the quality of care and the financial strength of those communities that also then turns back around and, leads to staffing and the important things that are going to affect your quality of care. So that is very, very important. So as a continuing care retirement community, or you'll also hear me just refer to it as a CCRC, part of the business model includes what most people would consider a very substantial initial investment. So can you talk about why there is an entrance fee and the benefit that residents receive by investing upfront in a CCRC?
Sure. So as Joe had mentioned previously, the most important piece of that would be access to all levels of care. So as Tom mentioned, we never really know how we're going to age, right? So be feeling really well today, tomorrow is a very different story. Every day is a new adventure, right? So that being said, the Lord is really the only one who has those plans in place for us, but we have to be ready for whatever those plans are. So, buying into a continuum, a CCRC, allows you access and guarantees you placement in a higher level of care should you ever need it someday. So many of our parents, grandparents have gone down that road, had a stroke, heart attack, things like that happen. So we have to be prepared when those times do come. So we do have on our campus independent residential living. We have assisted living memory care. We also have skilled nursing services, so long-term care, as well as short-term subacute rehabilitation as well. So it's kind of nice that whatever level of care you may need along the continuum, your needs would be well met at the community. It also touches on the promise of care of life until the end of care throughout the rest of your life. So again, going back to the benevolent program that we have at Covenant, which I believe is pretty unique to us, in that your families don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. Whatever my financial profile may be, as long as we're approved on the front end, you are guaranteed the care throughout the life, the rest of your life. Also, grants you access to all of our amenities. So we have an amazing activities department at our community. We have personal walking or private walking paths. We have nature paths through our 40 acres of wooded lots, church services, a full-time chaplain, nursing services. We have a pool, hot tub, fitness center, sauna, wood shop, gardens, pet park, all sorts of amenities, really too many to even list. So that's just all part of the initial buying fee as well. Joe will touch on this more in a second, but lots of great amenities as well.
Yeah, and the big thing when you look at specifically that upfront cost, that buy-in, that life lease. We all call it, by the way, something different. It's not to confuse you. We do very similar things. You will know when you go into a community, it's here, it's feel. We can't put it on a brochure. You will know when it's the right community, and there is no bad choice. But those entrance fees, everything operations, everything that Eric described, our number one initiative for the past 2 years has been staff, quality of staff that we're onboarding, and staff retention. There's a lot of investment that goes in that. You know, what do we do to motivate that resident assistant that's really doing the hardest job with our people with higher levels of care? How do we get our chef Adam, who's amazing, to stay around for 10 years? You know, how do we get, and Eric, I should say, I will give you a lot of grace. I invited Eric with Laura 2 days ago because Eric recently took the position as sales partner working with me. But he's been there for 18 years. Eric started, if I may, as a certified nurse assistant 8 years ago in our skilled nursing. He took care of those seniors. He then got his degree in exercise science, physiology. Yeah, long hair. He moved over to our healthcare building to be our fitness coordinator. He was so excited. He had his shorts on. Everyone loved this young guy coming over. That was March 10, 2020. Yeah.
Great timing, Eric.
He looks good on TV. We did on TV. And then as he continued his career path, he moved back into the healthcare building as a healthcare navigator. So one-on-one worked with our hospital referrals, other referral sources for individuals that haven't made a plan often. And something happens very suddenly, you know, to bring them into rehabilitation. And then we were at an event last year, October, I started courting them, and I said, you know, I think in the next year I'm going to add a rep. And I brought him over to the team, so.
She's very convincing.
So Joe, give me an example of what a buy-in amount might be, ballpark.
It's tough. We have 9 floor plans, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom floor plans, and we have 4 different agreements. So if I were to give you a broad range, I'd say you could start at $120,000 for an entrance fee. These have different refundabilities, pieces to them depending on what agreement. And you can go up to a $500,000 entrance fee. Yeah, $500,000. But the majority of that's going to be refundable. So you take this information, it's a process. That financial, we brush on when we initially meet with people. But the point is you've built a financial profile all of your life. So when you're making those decisions, again, whether it's to stay in your home, you know, or take the leap to a continuum or a rental or anything in between, they're all good choices, but it does lean back into what your financials you've built, who you want to live it to for, who you want to leave it for, are there nonprofits you want to give them, are there people you want to support. So those variety of agreements help you make the right choice should you consider the continuum for your next step.
Yep. And honestly, so a number like 100,000, or for that matter, 500,000, it can sound pretty crazy. And yet, if you compare it to the alternatives, for instance, you know, like I was saying with people buying condos, and I help people buy condos even into their 80s all the time that are in that $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 range. You know, we often talk about downsizing, but it's not necessarily downsizing, and condos are not necessarily even smaller than the home that you live in. They're often simply different. They're set up with a different layout that's going to work for this next time of your life. And when you're comparing a community to these other choices, whether you're, you know, spending it on purchasing something or spending it on a buy-in where you're really purchasing a contract, as I understand it, and working with a financial advisor, which I always recommend. We've got Sherry Hooper in the back who's, you know, it is so important to have someone in your corner who is helping you to evaluate those numbers for within the big picture of your life and your goals so that you can really tell that, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, projecting what that's going to look like for the long period. Yeah, can I comment?
So I'm the president of the Michigan chapter of the NPRA, that's the National Placement and Referral Alliance. It's essentially our trade organization. Without something like that, we give a code of ethics and best practices. So when you go to multiple communities that have different platforms and financial approaches, when you work with a reputable placement agent, they're going to take each one of those different approaches and put them on a spreadsheet for you so that you can understand how one will impact you versus the other. And at the end of the day, you see what the outcome is. Just, as Laura's saying, it may seem like, oh my gosh, it's $500,000 here or this, but when you look at it long term, they even out, and it's all about the experience of what they're promising. And a good placement person is going to manage expectations properly so you make an informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the bigger picture of your life, things like what Tom was referring to, that, a family member that is close to you, 20 minutes away, should something happen. Well, it's not uncommon for me to work with seniors that they don't necessarily have a person that is here in town, sometimes not even here in the state. And so, looking at your support system is an important part of making this decision, and the idea of even a community like Covenant that guarantees you no matter what, they will make sure that you have care, even if you do end up living 10 years longer than you originally did. There can be a level of comfort to adult children or other family members that may not be able to live 10 minutes and provide support that way, but maybe they can help provide support financially or otherwise, knowing that their parent will always be cared for. So just lots of different ways to look at it. So one of the things that I loved when I first toured your community was the level of customization that came along with choosing a unit. It really was a lot like moving into a new, purchasing a new condo. So can you talk a little bit about the variety of models that you have, and that what are the items that the new residents always get to choose when they decide to move in?
Sure. So with 9 floor plans, our apartment homes range from 700 square feet up to 1,400 plus square feet. You have balconies or you have extended living views. When people move in, they always get to pick the paint, same as Natalie. We never use somebody else's carpet because that's just gross. But individuals come in and, some of our recent bringing down that average median, which we're now at 81 in our senior living community, is one of our gentlemen said, well, the way I figured, I moved in here and this is the last third of my life, so I'm going to do what I want to do. They went to an extent, probably one of the greater ones, they put in heated bathroom floors. Never had one, kind of love it. You have people with disabilities, so they can do customized showers to be able to get around. We have plenty of standards that don't cost a thing. We're going to do new flooring, cabinets, countertops, plenty of choices. But some folks come in and just want to look at a little bit different, and they can make it their own, very personal. And it's important. Are you warm colors? Are you cool colors? Do you need another bedroom? What are those things? So those customizations are really fun and helps make it your own. You want to make it home.
Come on, you don't just paint everything agreeable gray like I do when I list a property?
Oh, no, but I will tell you, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. One of my favorite stories, there are so many. I have so many, but I got this call. Young lady, as she told me we were walking down the hall, and she said, Joe, I'm not as old as the rest of these people. And I looked at her and said, right, Joy. She's 92. And my facility coordinator calls and goes, holy cats, Joe, you gotta come down here. This paint cannot be right. So I go down to her apartment, and it is lime green. If you look at our logo, it's lime green. And I'm like, Joy, hey, we're painting your room. Come on up if you want to look at it. I really want to show this to you. So she walks in and goes, I love it. And we said we did too.
Good answer. Absolutely good answer.
Absolutely. But our mottos are kind of agreeable gray. We got that neutral palette for anybody to go either way.
And I just had that question from someone else I was working with recently, and they said, I feel like refreshing the condo that she's going to stay in, and she's like, well, what colors should I choose? And I said, well, what colors make you happy? We've already discussed that, I was brought in because she thought she might need to sell it to pay for care for her husband, and it was really determined that she didn't want to leave. And so I'm helping her stay. And so I said, whatever colors are your colors are the right colors, period. I said, find a pillow, find a picture that you love, pull something out of that, but at the end of the day, since you're not selling, it doesn't matter because it's all you. So that really is true. So Joe and Eric, can you talk a little bit about a day in the life of somebody at Covenant Living? Is there any kind of a typical resident, which I'm already guessing there is not, but any personal examples and stories would be awesome.
That is a really wonderful question, and you are correct. There is no answer for that. So everybody's day is a little bit different, and that's one of the beautiful parts of the community that we belong to. There are so many different options for activities, events, volunteering. You really can't be bored even if you want it to be. So everybody's day looks a little bit different depending on what you like to do. We have folks that still work full-time. They're still fully employed, working remotely from their homes. We have people that volunteer full-time at our community as well. So everybody's experience is a little bit different. I will say that because we have all of those options, you can elect to do as many or as few of them if you like. Some people like to sit in their apartment most of the day and read, catch up on documentaries. That is totally fine. Other people like to go activity, exercise class, activity. So whatever you like to do, the world is your oyster at Covenant Living, which is really great.
Some of that, like events as well too, is so fun. People are like, what's your calendar? We do have a calendar, but everything's organic from the resident. So we have 2 individuals that have long names that call concierge. They don't say, here's what you're doing for October. The residents write it. So we now have a certified sanctuary monarch butterfly garden that was from one of our residents, and I'm told that the monarchs came very heartily this year. We now have completed or we're in the process of doing our dog park that we have on campus. We have one of our more active, I don't use young and old because I can't keep up with 90-year-olds. But one of our couples walked out and they had literally looked like they were going the Tour de France with their spandex on and their hats, the whole bit going Viking. And then you're right, Eric, you have people that love to go down to chapel every Wednesday and love to go to Bible study. The other thing, and I think this is true with all the communities that work with Tom and communities, the thing about community, staying in your home is an okay choice for you. But Lord, I can get passionate about what community is having that neighbor next door that kind of understands the journey that you've been on. When there's loss, we all have loss. I think God made us to be together with people, and I think we learned a lot of that through the pandemic, how being alone just wasn't as what we wanted to be when we had to be alone.
Yeah, I agree that wholeheartedly. There's a lot of different options out there, but there's so much truth to simply that idea of aging in the right place. And we all love our homes, but there is something to be said for the emotional support that we get from community, and there's, you're the only one that can answer that is you. So